if you have something in the back of your mind that changes your tone of voice. Once you communicate with each other, you silently or explicitly agree to certain rules, how to communicate with each other. So I can talk with you in a certain way. This 4 walls or 4 ears model is really, really good to figure out the problem, to source the problem. It's also good to be aware of in everyday communication. It's not good to use it all the time and to overthink it. Absolutely not beneficial.
Communication is also one of these things where I feel like a lot of other things can get better with time. Often communication gets worse with time because we get complacent. We forget to remember to communicate or how to communicate.
Love doesn't need to be shit.
Your podcast on how to create a healthy relationship with Evie and Ben. Hello and welcome everybody to another episode of our lovely podcast with Evie.
Hello.
And me, Ben. And today, talking about how to create healthy relationships, we will tackle the topic of how to communicate in relationships and actually how to avoid misunderstandings.
And conflict.
Oh, and conflicts. All of the things.
No, I'm just throwing that in now. Maybe we won't cover that.
We'll see. In the preparation, we've had a bit of a, not disagreement, not fight, but bit of tension.
Yeah, healthy tension.
Healthy tension, because communication is such a huge topic. It's like I wanted more restraints, whereas Evie said, no, let's just talk about what is important to us in communication.
See where the conversation goes.
Exactly. So we've both prepared our topics about relationships and about communication. There we go. But the disclaimer here is that we might not are able to cover all of the things.
We will not be able to cover everything about communication.
Thank you.
Like, this will be a starter for 10, which hopefully inspires you to think a bit more about how you could communicate more effectively in your relationship.
Yeah.
Hopefully there's some inspiration in there.
And hopefully there's one more misunderstanding less on the world within our relationship.
Let's talk about communication. One more misunderstanding less.
Okay.
English isn't his first language.
Thank you. So let's say this again. Hopefully there's one less misunderstanding in your relationship. I can't talk anymore.
That'll do, darling.
Will
That'll
that
do.
do?
People will
Thank
understand
you.
that.
Okay, good. Yes, please have some leeway with me, all right? Good. Talking about communication or misunderstandings in communication, I want to start off with a little example we had in our relationship about misunderstandings. And yes, it was something that was about me not speaking English as a native language, but I believe this exists just as in relationships where both people speak the same language as their mother tongue. The example is, or what we had as a misunderstanding was that at the beginning, when we had discussions about how we actually communicate, and I would disagree with certain things that Evie would, or the way Evie saw certain situations, I would say, I don't like how you judge this situation. And Evie, I think the first few times she didn't say anything, but at some point she said, why do you think I see this in a bad way? And I was like, what do you mean in a bad way? Like, you judge a situation that's very factual, it's very neutral, it's just like the situation you judge. And Evie was like, no. Like, when we say we judge something, it has this rather negative connotation. So I've learned that in Evie's culture, that using the word or the verb judging or to judge is rather negative than positive, and rather negative than even neutral. So I had to be a bit more careful about the choice of words I used when it was about to describe a situation, or how I felt she deemed a situation. Assessed, exactly. So there are different words you can use, but there are also many other situations where there are prone to be misunderstandings in relationships.
Yeah. And I think it's an interesting one because like communication is so important, and even these slight...
Every trainer will say that. Oh, communication is key.
Yeah.
Go on.
But like in terms of these tiny little words that you think, oh, that's not important, and like you use a word and then I'm like, oh, why do you think that's bad? And you'll be like, no, I don't think it's bad. But in my head, I'm already believing that, like, the way that communication works, I don't know, I can't tell you all the facts, you're the one with the communication degree, but you say a word and my brain has already processed that and stored the fact that I think that you're perceiving something in a more negative light.
Yeah.
So even if you tell me otherwise, like that initial word has such a big impact that you can't just unpick it. So it's not just about choosing our words right in the first place, even though they are important, but everything that we say and do has a way bigger impact than we think.
This is what makes a person a good rhetoric person or a bad rhetoric person. If this person knows how to choose the right words in the right context to frame a certain thing the way they want to frame it, and it also is perceived that way. So if I want to give you an option about certain things which I don't like as a politician, I would use rather negative connotated words. Mm-hmm. I would be like, yeah, you can definitely use this judged book. Bad example, but you know what I'm getting at.
Yeah, exactly. You can bring bias into the way that you portray something.
Yeah, I think people would call that neuralistic programmation language.
Yes.
NLP.
NLP.
Yeah, exactly.
We usually talk about it in a more positive light.
Really? We call it, like, we use it very much as a, like, when we talk about NLP, we see it as a deception of people.
Yeah.
Like, it's not in a good way.
But you can also use it to like reframe and retrain your thinking process to be more positive.
There's always, where's shadow, there's light.
Anyway. But yes. Communication is important. I did a quick stat check as well, and apparently 65% of marriages that break down due to poor communication.
Yeah, that's
quite a lot.
Understandable. I think this is another thing. I think people think communication is key, but what actually is communication? Is communicating using your tongue and producing sounds that are words with meaning? Is that communication? I think communication is more about what words we choose, yes, but also what our values are, like the values within us and the values we want to transport. So if I want to be an honest person, a trustworthy person, I will use words, or like I will communicate in a transparent way. Mm-hmm. Full stop.
No, it's an interesting point how values come into it. I might be jumping the gun, but even if you are communicating in an honest way, if I'm a very negative person, I might not perceive it in that way as well. So there's so many dimensions that come into play, and like when I talk about things like marriages falling down, communication is also one of these things where I feel like a lot of other things can get better with time. Often communication gets worse with time because we get complacent. We forget to remember to communicate or how to communicate.
I've read a book once called Nonviolent Communication by Marshall Rosenberg, and he developed a technique, which is about nonviolent communication. Listening or even reading that title, nonviolent, already produces something in your head, doesn't it? Violence it's harsh, it's rough, right? But it's actually just about how to communicate your feelings and needs in a way that is not violent against you, like towards your partner. So in other words, how to communicate your desires, feelings, and needs in the most neutral way possible, so that the receiver on the other end is not framed in a different way. Mm-hmm. So this
less accusational.
Well, less accusational, but even less framed, less NLP-ish. All of the bits we've just talked about, more about how I feel, which is about messages.
It's less about the other person, it's more about
3 messages.
Yeah.
There's the you did this. There's the we should go to the supermarket.
Oh, you hate that. You always think I'm using the royal we.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And there's the I would like you to go to the supermarket. So, and all of these messages can be the same, about the same topic, but can be perceived differently.
Okay, even if we take this example, the way that our conversations usually work is I'm like, oh, love, would you go to the supermarket? And then you'll be like, do you want me to go to the supermarket? But because of the way that I phrase questions, it's like, well, yeah, obviously if I want you to, because I asked you if you would. But you would rather me say, I would like you to go.
Could you please go to the supermarket?
Oh, that one's okay.
That would be even better, because would you like to? I can if you want me to, but I would not like to go to the supermarket because I hate supermarkets. Like,
yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
I don't hate supermarkets, but this is like, all right, here we go to how we understand, how we listen, what do we perceive. When we talk about communication, it's about sending and it's about receiving. I need to take this one down. It's about sending and it's about receiving. And there's a model, it's called the 4 ears model or 4 walls model, developed by a German communication researcher called Schulz von Thun.
So each one of the 4 is very direct.
Well, you tell me. Let me give you the 4 ears or the 4 walls are factual information, relationship, self-revelation, and appeal. These are the 4 ears.
Okay, I need you to explain some of those in a bit more detail.
With pleasure. So, the factual information is the message. Like, it's always about the factual information of the message. It's something that is true or not true. Would you like to go to the supermarket? Is about, do you like to go to the supermarket? The factual thing. So, do I like to? No, I don't like to go to the supermarket. That's the fact. That's the truth in it. It's very factual. Nothing else. Then there's the self-revelation. Would you like to go to the supermarket? I would like you to go to... No, wait. The self-revelation, I need to get this right. The self-revelation contains information about the sender. So which information... Yeah, the self-revealing...
Yeah, so the reveal in there is that I'm telling you that I would like you to go.
Yeah, it's the hidden... it's the information about the sender hidden in the message.
Which is that I don't want to go.
Yes. Also that I am helping you. Kinda. The relationship expresses how we get along. So if you tell me, would you like to go to the supermarket, expresses that we get along well. Because otherwise you'd say, go to the supermarket.
Yeah.
That, like, would you like to go to the supermarket means, or...
And treating you with kindness.
Could be like, I would like you to go to the supermarket. All right. And The appeal is what the sender wants the receiver to think or to do. Let me give you different examples. And also always keep in mind, this 4-ear model exists on both sides. So on the sender and on the receiver. Let's just say someone that hasn't cooked a soup looks at the soup and says, there's something green in it. All right?
Mm-hmm.
So the sender, on a factual level, says, there is something green. That's true or not true. Okay? The self-revealing layer is, I don't know what that is. The relationship layer is, you should know what that is. The appeal layer is, tell me what that is. These are the 4 messages. And just as the sender can send in different ways, the receiver can receive them in different ways. The receiver on the factual level says there's something green. Yes or no. All right? The revealing layer is you don't know what the green item is, and that makes you feel uncomfortable. The relationship layer is you think my cooking is questionable. And the appeal layer is I should only cook what you know in the future. This is an example of someone saying there's something green in the soup.
And how complex that can be.
And how, basically 8 ways, or not 16 ways to
interpret that message.
Exactly, with one on the sender end and one on the receiving end.
Yeah.
Which is it's something that we've had. This is honestly, every couple, every relationship has problems with that 100%. So do we.
Yeah.
You say things, and you say things in a factual level. The light's on. I understand. Why haven't you put out the light yet? Turned off the light yet?
And honestly, I feel like your communication is more direct than my communication. You will very much ask for your needs. It's partially cultural and partially individual preference. So all of these different angles exist, and I don't think that's necessarily it's not a problem. You can't remove that. This exists in all scenarios. So when it comes down to being in a relationship, it's then a case of saying for example, I don't like to communicate with you super directly because it makes me feel uncomfortable. I'm not used to it. It's not the way that we do it. I want to make it feel like we can have a conversation and there's options there, even if I have a preference. So I feel like.
But why does it make you feel uncomfortable?
Partially cultural background. If I went into people in England and said, I want you to do this, especially if we take the workplace, for example, which is where we learn a lot of our communication, people would take offense to that. It would be I'm the controlling one, I'm the one with the power and the dominance, and they have no choice. Whereas the way that I am as a personality type is I'm this yellow bubbly person. I want everyone to feel involved and feel engaged. So you have all of these different layers of your own personality that make up the way that you like to communicate. And then you go into to communicate with someone else in a relationship that has totally different preferences. Not totally different.
Can you give an example?
The light on example. I'm oh love, the light's still on. Because I'm trying to make it a bit fun. Whereas if I was love, can you turn the light off? It's got such a different dynamic to who's in control here and who's how is that message presented. And I can't tell you exactly why I feel this way, whereas I feel like we'd have to dig so deep into my psychology. But I obviously have this tendency where I want people to deem me as being nice and friendly and inclusive. And I perceive people that are more direct and straightforward and dictate and send orders as being less favourable from that point of view, which isn't true, but
do you feel like you're direct as well?
Yeah, I can be.
In what situations are you direct?
When I really care about something.
Like what?
If I have a really strong opinion on something. I can't think of any examples right now.
Would you please not touch my leg?
Yeah. If I'm pushed to the edge of my limits, like if I'm hungry or tired or irritable, I'll tell you straight, like there is no holding back. Like that's when you see all of the outbursts from me. And you don't even know where they've come from. You're like, what?
And you perceive me more as a general direct person.
Yeah.
Like not even, I don't need to be pushed to the edge to be direct to you.
No. But this is also interesting because like when I did my color profile, I was on my subconscious layer. I'm very red and very green. So I can be very direct and I can also be very take a back seat. Whereas my conscious profile, so the persona that I put on in all scenarios that I've learned how to behave in that way, is very yellow. It's very, let's bring everyone in, let's do whatever. And I think that's when you see the difference in me, is like when I'm pushed to the limit, I lose my conscious abilities and I go to my subconscious and it's the opposite.
Interesting. Interesting, because I don't feel like I'm as direct as you describe me.
I feel like you're very willing to express your preferences in a straightforward, communicative way. I don't have to second guess what you might be thinking, whereas I think you probably do with what I do based on the 4 ears.
What I always like is when I can believe what people say. And my belief, like one of my values in my life is I treat people like I want to be treated. So I like to be treated explicit, fairly direct, because I have, being
half German.
No, it's not. I'm not sure if this is about being half German, honestly. I think it's there's more to it. It's more about, like, reflecting on that. I think it's more about all of the times, all of the situations when I felt absolutely gutted and frustrated in meetings, project works, when it was just about like talking about like just circling around the uncomfortable topic. And I just don't like that, because we're not progressing. We're not
actually cutting to the chase and getting the outcome that anyone wants.
Exactly. It's just about, could you please, and then again, being direct in my world doesn't mean to be rude. So you can be direct and still be, and now we've talked about values, transporting values. You can be direct while still be respectful and polite. So you can say, could you please turn off the light? You don't need to say, turn off the light. Yeah,
you're right.
So there's direct, but direct doesn't mean to be bad, in my opinion.
Do you know what though? So,
which is?
But I think so much of it comes down to an insecurity of getting needs met.
Elaborate.
In that example, for example, if I say, "Oh, love, like the light's still on," it's like I'm waiting for you to be willing to step out and meet my needs.
All right. What message do you want to send?
Like, could you please turn the light off?
Okay, see, there's the appeal message.
No, exactly. I agree. But the reason why I think maybe I'm not always willing to say that is if you ask that question, you've got that chance of rejection as well.
But always.
Always, I know. But it's like, you know, when you start to think about the way that you communicate and like what actually is underpinning all of those things and why does it come across that way? Like those things aside, like that's why when you're like, it's way easier if you just say it this way. I'm like, yeah, you're right. Like, if I'm just more direct with you, if I'm just open and honest and like express my needs to you, there's a far higher chance of you being able to meet them than if I'm trying to beat around the bush and like none of us know what's going on. So I totally agree with you, but it's like you need to unpick.
I need to unpick.
No, okay. But both of us.
Here we go.
Scenarios.
Now, what I've said at the beginning, it's you, me, and I messages. You, me, and we messages.
Yeah, but in this scenario, it helps me to understand why I might not be able to communicate with you in that way, so that I can work out what those blockers are, so I can communicate with you in a way that is partially your preference, but is also more beneficial for our relationship.
Which is also something I want to add here. This 4 walls or 4 ears model is really, really good to figure out the problem, to source the problem. It's also good to be aware of in everyday communication. It's not good to use it all the time and to overthink it. Absolutely not beneficial. So, community quest at this point of at this stage for you guys. Next time you have a misunderstanding or a minor argument fight with your partner, sit down and talk with each other about what has been said and what has been sent and what has been understood. And then play a game, make it a game, put a little bit of gamification in it. Try to figure out all the 4 walls and how you potentially can interpret and receive the message or send the message. Very interesting and helps a lot. When we've done that, when we did these things, it always helped you and me to understand, oh, this is how you sent it. Oh, this is how you perceived it. This is how you perceived my sent message. Mm-hmm. And I would understand how I perceived your sent message.
Yeah. And like, what can we do individually to change perceptions, but also what can we do to send the message across in the right way?
Exactly. Or, what can you do? Well, I don't want to cut a lot because there's there's a lot more before we go into how to resolve things mode.
Yeah. I was going to say something else even before that anyway. Oh, like another minor thing that I think you do really well when we're having conversations a lot of the time as well is I'll say something and then you'll just ask the simple question, like, what do you really mean? Or like, what are you actually trying to convey here? So instead of just like, if someone says something and you're not quite sure about what message it is that they're trying to get across or how to interpret it, or if you think you're making assumptions in someone's communication, just ask a quick clarifying question. And then you're usually going to get a better response, because by you asking me that question, what I hear is like, oh, I want to hear what you're telling me. Like, it's you trying to engage with me. It's you trying to get more information. So I'm like, okay, like, cool. He wants to listen to me. So I feel like I'm going to be heard. And then I feel like I can tell you what I want to say. So it opens up that psychological safety for us to be able to have more in-depth communication than that surface level. One
of the most important things about communication, in my humble opinion, is the tone of voice. You can say to someone, "You are such an asshole," which on a factual level is the same as "you're such an asshole," but it sends a completely different message. So tone of voice, I believe, is crucial when it comes to understanding your partner, having a chat, cutting to the chase of the problem, or even asking for things. Leaving aside your mood of the day, how you felt, what hard of a day you had, what easy and nice day you had, but very much just how you go and talk to someone. What you just said, when I ask you clarifying questions, I just try to be I want to know more. Like in my head, I'm like, I don't understand. I want to know more.
Yeah.
I'm not thinking, silly cow, what the fuck is she? What does she want from me? I'm not thinking that, because otherwise that would very much be transported by my tongue, and I'd be like, could you clarify that?
What do you want?
What
do you actually want?
Could you be not as stupid? Yeah.
So you already have to treat me as a friend and perceive me as being someone on your side before you start to communicate with me.
Unfortunately.
And honestly, like, this is so interesting. Like, I've have been doing a public speaking training course recently.
No way.
Yeah, way.
Can
you tell?
Yeah,
Am I a great public speaker now?
Leave a comment and a like if you agree.
If you'd like me on a stage.
Whoop, whoop.
But one of the things that we were talking about was this negativity bias. And it happens a lot more with strangers, but it can also happen with the people that you know. And because of our primal instincts, we have this tendency to make ourselves feel safe, which means that we don't naturally trust anyone else around us. And if we go to do public speaking, we walk into a room, and what's the first thing you think? You don't walk in thinking like, oh, well, maybe you do because you're a bit cocky. Like... These people are going to fucking love me. They're going to eat out of my palms. They're going to love every word I have to say. Like, instead, we usually walk into rooms and we think, fuck, like, this audience doesn't want to be here. They're probably going to hate me. Like, they're probably going to be bored of me. Like,
what?
My talk might not be good enough.
Is that what you think?
Do you not have this?
No. When I walk into a room and the things I think is, all right, I'm going to tell these people the best bloody thing they've heard in their entire life.
Maybe this is a confidence thing.
Honestly, like I'm like, oh well, no, honestly, like aside from that, yeah, I also tell myself, let the show begin, and I'll pull a show.
And that's how it should be. It's like if you go in with that aura that you're going to put on this performance and you're going to like give people the best you've got, that's what you put across.
No, let me differentiate there.
Uh-huh.
Not the best I've got, but the best they've seen.
You're so confident. Like,
it's a show. You have to keep in mind it is a show.
Yeah.
Like
you're performing.
Exactly.
Yeah. But anyway, going back to the point is like, and obviously you have this natural tendency to perceive other people as being on your side and as friends from that point of view. We don't all have that. Like, sometimes we can perceive other people to be our enemy and be this negative person, and that really influences how we have that conversation.
Do you know what that causes?
Conflict.
Yeah, but you know what that's based on?
What?
A lack of trust. If you don't know what trust is and how trust intervenes with your relationship, you can listen to episode number 2.
Anyway, so yes, I agree. Like, you have to really want to be on someone's side, and then that comes across in your tone of voice.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly. So, tone of voice is something I feel like we have a lot of conflicts about. When you tell me things in the wrong voice.
Oh, are we being accusational here?
Talking from my perspective. Like, my perspective being in the wrong voice. Of course, it's your voice, like, and from your point of view, that's the right voice. From my point of view, it's the wrong voice. I can't. Like, when you
Love, why don't you try and frame this and talk to me about how you feel instead of saying when you use the wrong voice?
That is absolutely a great
should we practice?
Suggestion. Yeah. I feel mistreated and disrespected when I hear you talking to me in a harsh tone.
Which, do you know what? Like, I don't want you to feel that way. So therefore, I would like to change my behavior in those scenarios.
Very good. Listeners and viewers, what you've just experienced is basically what Rosenberg said in his nonviolent communication. It's about how to convey your feelings and transport your feelings without violating the space of the other person. So it's very much about I messages. So it's about me. You talk about yourself and how the thing the other person said or did makes you feel. And it's not about accusing, it's about letting the other person understand how it makes you feel, which is very important. Like I said, with the tone of voice, if you have something in the back of your mind, that changes your tone of voice. If you have a different desire, need in the back of your mind, that will change the tone of voice again. So if you really want to bring across how it makes you feel and what the need is, you should have this in the back of your mind. So Rosenberg says, state your need, start with paraphrasing what the other person said. From what you've said, I hear you. You tell me. Say how it makes you feel. That makes me feel that and that way. Give a reason. I don't like that because this or that. Or that makes me sad because this and that. Or that makes me don't want to hang out with you because this and that. But then also add something that could be improved. I would like you to talk to me in this and that way. Or I would prefer if you could change the way you speak.
Yeah.
Just to mention it, so I've said it. Part of it is also that it's about, I forgot the word. When you are, all right, we're playing the game again.
I'm ready.
Good. If you, when you value someone, you are
Respect?
No, it's not. It's like respecting, but it's like appreciating. It's about appreciation.
Okay.
I think appreciation is the right word. Let's just go with it for the lack of it, for the sake of it. So it's very much about appreciating the other person.
Yeah, and wanting them to feel valued and supported.
In this case, no. Rosenberg is not about.
No, okay.
This guy. It's
Honestly,
not about. Just to be factual there. This guy, no. The outcome should be that, yes.
Yeah, which is fine. I can definitely tell you have a degree in this. No, let's make sure that all of the frameworks are perceived accurately as opposed to using these things in theory and practice.
All right.
The message that I'm trying to get across there is
Can you go on?
that I feel like if I can understand that point and relate to that point and we agree on what that point is and what that looks like for us, that's more important than getting the facts of the framework correct.
Yeah. I think what you said should be a general underlying sentiment in a relationship. Mm-hmm. I want to be your partner and I want to support you.
Yeah.
Whether it be in communication, whether it be in just non-verbal, we haven't even touched non-verbal communication, have we?
I don't think we should. I don't think we'll get onto all of these elements.
But no matter what, this should be a part of general sentiment.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I have some more things here.
Of course you do. You've got 4 years of education.
Once you communicate with each other, you silently or explicitly agree to certain rules, how to communicate with each other. So I can talk with you in a certain way because we've started to agree to these things. We've started to agree how we talk with each other. By you telling me that you not prefer me being so direct, and by me telling you not preferring you to talk to me in a harsh tone. But if you never do this, you implicitly agree to this rule. So if someone always shouts when this person is angry, you never say, stop shouting at me, it makes me feel disrespected, you are agreeing with it. And this forms this rule. Mm-hmm. This rule within your communication. So there are always different rules. When you talk with certain different people, there's always different rules to it. So always make sure to be aware of these rules. And you can change these rules, but you have to be explicit about it. You have to name them. You have to address them. You have to say, oi, I've realized the way we were speaking, I don't feel like you are listening to me, or I don't feel like you let me end my sentences. I don't like that. I would like to convey the whole of my information and to have the room within our relationship in order to do that. So please make sure to respect us in future.
This is what I mean about the directness. Like, there's tiny phrasings. Like, I feel like if you talk to me like that, it's like you have the power over me. It's very like dominant. Like, make sure you do this. Whereas like my preference is like, oh, like in the future, like would it be all right if we could try communicating in this way? Like, it's more inclusive. It's more like bringing someone into the conversation. And I'm not saying like, oh, like the way that I communicate is better than the way that you communicate, but it's like even these tiny nuances make such a difference in how I'm receiving that information.
Yes. Also, what I feel like, well, and that's a feeling, what I feel like you learn over time mm-hmm. is to understand how you say things, like to understand how your partner says the things you say.
Yes, like I know I take way less offense now.
Me too, but just because we've talked about it a lot. So when you say certain things, or when I say certain things, like you say, oh, would you be, like I already kind of translate it in my head. I'm like, oh, well, it's this or that. Not because we've never talked about it, but actually because we talked about it. Crucial here, talk about it. Be explicit about it. Ask questions, whether or not you understood this person correctly, or whether or not this was the feeling. Again, 4 ears, 4 walls model.
Yeah, and so much of it is like, it's just around knowing what sentiment is coming from it. Like when I know that the sentiment from it is coming from you as friends and from a place of we're trying to make things better, mm-hmm. then the words are a bit less relevant. Like I can then put them aside as long as I know, believe and trust that, which happens from digging into all of these little nuances over time.
Mm-hmm. Community question right here. What are experiences you've made with your partner when you translated certain words into your words or certain phrases into your phrases? Just like I'd say, could you please? And Evie says, would you mind if? These kind of translations. Let us know in the comments. Would be a pleasure to hear about your experiences. I honestly, I've written. Wait, let me see. I have something more.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm like, maybe we choose one more, and maybe we do another episode on communication, because there's probably 20 million more things we can talk about.
100%. All right. Yeah.
And, you know, if there's anything about communication that you'd like us to talk about, then pose your questions or elements, because this man has got a wealth of information to share.
Please.
Put your degree to use, love.
Oh, finally.
Honestly, your mum will be proud.
Oh, love your mum. All right, I have 2 more things. We've already kind of tackled. One is, are you both listening to each other? And the emphasis here is on both. Mm-hmm. So it's always great to, if you're very much aware that you should listen and you should be actively listening and be like rephrasing things, but it doesn't work if only one person does the work. So both people need to put in the work. Both people need to listen as much as they speak.
Yeah, and I totally agree. And I think that we're still both guilty of this, and this is a natural human tendency, is that you're so much more preoccupied with trying to make sure someone can understand you that you're not always listening. And we both do this a lot, I think, is like, instead of asking those questions, if it's something that we both feel passionate about, we do this worse. If it's something that you're passionate about, where I'm like, I understand that this is your need and I'm willing to meet it, I'm so much better at like asking the questions to understand where it's coming from and doing it from a non-judgmental point of view. If we've had a fight about something, not like we're necessarily trying to defend ourselves, but we're trying to
rephrase it and rephrase it and rephrase it.
Yeah, and just make sure we've got our point across, which means that we're not listening to the other person's point.
Which is another thing about communication. You don't have to agree with everything.
Mm-hmm.
Just because you are in a relationship doesn't mean that you are agreeing with 100% of the feelings of the
values, the things that someone else cares about, the way that someone else thinks it should be.
Yeah, your thoughts, No.
Your preferences.
Exactly. You are two different human beings, and both of you have the right to exist. So both of you have probably share a lot. Yes. Otherwise, this relationship would be a lot of work, or absolutely impossible to enjoy because of that much work. But still, because you have so much you share, there will still be nuances, at least, that will be different, and that's okay. Things Evie sometimes says, or things I say, which Evie will then be like, I disagree with that, or I don't like that, and I'll be like, yeah, I'm not gonna change that.
Yeah, and I don't think you have to. I feel like if there's things that are like the top 20% of something you care about, like, you need someone else to respect that, so your needs feel like they're getting met, whether it's communication styles or anything else. Anything else that's in that grey area, so there's so much that's not necessarily compromise, but just acceptance. Just accepting that we don't see eye to eye, or that we have different preferences, and making sure we can understand those and we weave those in. It's not about completely changing the other person.
Yes, because you can't change the other person.
At least not for a permanently sustainable, happy relationship.
No, I always think you can ask for favors. This is always how I have it in mind. Sometimes Evie asks me for oh, could you please do this or that, or change this or that a bit in future, because it's important to me, or I do this to Evie. But also, I will always try, and this is what I tell Evie then. I always say, yeah, I will try, which is exactly what I mean, which is also that it will not be an accuracy rate of 100%. So there will be times where I ace that, and that will be different, but there will be times where it's not. But important thing is that Evie knows that it's not intentional, that I try to do things that are important to her according to her preferences, but also when I don't do them, that she knows that I don't do them, that I didn't not do them in spite.
Yeah, no, it really helps. It really helps to then know that we're putting the effort in, and that it's not always going to be perfect, but it's small changes over time.
Yeah. What have you learned, love? What do you take away from here?
Well, I didn't know the complexities of those models, but it's opened my eyes up even more as to how nuanced communication can be. At the surface level, I feel like we already uncover a lot, and we are open to having these conversations a lot of the time. But even when you think about the 4 A's, you realise just how nuanced every single sentence that we say can be. Mm-hmm. What about you, love?
I've learned that Evie thinks I'm the directest person in the world.
Do you remember what my mum said? What? When she thought you were going to get on the train and go home. Because the way that you communicated.
We're on a camping trip, and the way I communicated led to the assumption that I would take the next train and go home.
Where it was like, and he honestly like didn't, like, you weren't even bothered by whatever you were telling me
Not
about.
at all.
But like, that's how even my mum interpreted it.
Which will be another topic on the podcast. How how the relationship of your mom, your upbringing, your mom and dad, your upbringing, your social environment shaped your forms, beliefs, and behavior.
Oh, will it?
100%.
But yeah, you're just very, and this is what I love about it. This is why I'm on board with your communication styles. You're very open, honest, transparent. Like, I don't have to second guess anything.
Yes. Thank you, love. I appreciate that. Be consistent, guys. Be consistent.
Yeah.
So that's
a wrap.
An episode about communication. Definitely not the last one, but it was interesting. I hope you guys could take away some bits. If you have any questions about anything, let us know.
Yeah.
And
we'll do another one.
As always, this podcast can only help as many people as it receives. So please like, share, hit the like button for the algorithm. Make sure that you share the episode with people that need to hear that, so we can help as many people as possible and grow the community.
Yeah. Leave your thoughts. Leave all of your thoughts on communication with us.
Sweet. All right, guys. See you next time.
Thank you. News reporter Ben. Shuffle sheets.